Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Oakland Chinatown Coalition hosted District 2 Candidate Forum. Welcome, welcome. I'm Janelle Chan. I'm the CEO of EBAYC Local Development Corporation, also known as EBALDC. We've been serving Chinatown as well as the Oakland, our fair city of Oakland for the past 50 years. We have the most affordable housing of any private developer, as well as providing homes for over 100 small businesses and nonprofits.
Hello, my name is Ada Chan, and I have been a longtime Oakland resident and done many, many things in Chinatown: job training, affordable housing development, community planning, but all about how do we make Chinatown stronger and how do we make the Chinatown community stronger. So welcome. We're going to start the Candidates Forum. This evening, you will get to meet the candidates for District 2 Council Member and learn about their positions on issues facing Chinatown and our District 2. This event is brought to you by the Oakland Chinatown Coalition with particular support from Asian Pacific Environmental Network, EBAYC Local Development Corporation, OCA, EBAYC, Asian Health Services, Oakland Asian Cultural Center, Family Bridges, APAL, and Oakland Chinatown Improvement Council. Yay! Good job. We also want to lift up our co-hosts who provided a lot of support to make this event happen. Oakland Rising, AAPIs for Civic Empowerment, ARTogether, Mental Health Association for Chinese Communities, Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce, Chinese American Citizens Alliance, EBAYC Youth Center, and the League of Women Voters.
The Oakland Chinatown Coalition was founded in 2003 as a community-driven alliance advocating for a vibrant Chinatown. What began as a movement for pedestrian and traffic safety has evolved into a broad-based coalition committed to ensuring Chinatown's future as an inclusive, multi-generational, and culturally rich neighborhood. OCC represents a diverse network of residents, small businesses, and organizations collectively working to address key challenges such as public safety, affordable housing, economic stability, community health, and adequate open space. As a vital hub for both the local community and the broader Bay Area, Chinatown plays a crucial role in Oakland's economic and cultural recovery. Home to over 4,400 residents, predominantly immigrants, this neighborhood is a regional anchor for small businesses and community services. However, a median household income is less than $25,000. OCC stands at the forefront of advocating for equitable policies, leveraging partnerships, and amplifying community voices to ensure Chinatown remains a thriving part of Oakland's future. Tonight, as we engage with candidates, we urge a focus on leadership and policies that will support Chinatown's long-term stability and vibrancy.
So what are the responsibilities of a council member? The City Council sets goals and priorities for the city. The council approves the city budget, adopts laws to help the city serve its community members, and appoints members to various boards and commissions. The 8-member City Council is made up of 1 representative from each of the 7 districts and 1 at-large member. Typically, a council member will serve for 4 years. Because this is a special election, the elected council member will serve the remaining term until 2026. Who does the council candidate represent? D2 surrounds the eastern and southern parts of Lake Merritt and extends beyond at 12th Broadway at 12th Street to roughly 23rd Avenue, and from Oakland Estuary to Piedmont border to encompass Chinatown, East Lake, San Antonio, and Grand Lake neighborhoods. Ground rules for the forum. Now I'm talking to them. The event is being translated simultaneously into Cantonese Mandarin and Vietnamese. The translators must watch and listen to the proceedings and instantly repeat what they hear in language. Please speak slowly and clearly so the translators can do their job. Each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to introduce themselves. Candidates will be asked 6 questions about issues that are important to Chinatown. Candidates are expected to address the audience in response to the questions, as this is not a debate between candidates. So they'll be talking to you, not to each other, right? The candidates will take turns going first. Timekeepers will make sure that each candidate has the same amount of time to answer. And our moderators will signal when time is up. And your mics may be silenced if you don't stop. Appropriate measures such as the suspension of microphone privileges will be taken to prevent any speech or behavior that is disrespectful or not in accordance with the values of this community. This is a neutral forum for the discussion of ideas. That means that the candidates and their supporters are not to pass out or display or wear any campaign material or badges during this forum. Because of limited time, please hold your applause until the end of each segment.
Now we can move on to the introduction of our candidates. Each candidate have drawn out numbers to say which order in which they're going to introduce themselves. And right now, the first person to... Okay. The first candidate to introduce herself is Ms. Paula F.L. Thomas, Commercial Property Manager.
Hi, I'm Paula Thomas, and I'm running for City Council because I have a vision for Oakland that's a lot different than what I've been seeing. With everything that happened with the last mayor and what's been going on, I just feel like we need to see some integrity in the City Council again, and so I'm here to make sure that, you know, I can represent the city, and especially District 2, in the best possible way. I was born and raised in District 2. I graduated from Skyline High School, went to San Francisco State, had an opportunity to own a radio station in Sacramento, California, became the #1 station in the market. I was able to get the license. Took 10 years to get that license, and I was able to build and operate the station and sell it for a multi-million-dollar profit. So I feel like with my business background and everything that's going on here in Oakland, we need to start generating income. That's why the city is running out of money, because they're not finding ways to generate income. They are making money off of parking tickets and meters. That makes no sense at all. They've got 26 departments and no Department of Commerce. So I'm here to bring business to Oakland, bigger, smaller, just more businesses. We need more business in Oakland. Thank you.
Next candidate is Ms. Charlene Wang, Civil Rights Advisor.
大家好，大家好，我的名字是王夏玲，我正在竞选 Oakland 的议员，因为我要保护你们，我要帮你们。Okay, I get emotional actually when I think about Chinatown, because this is the community that I'm really here to fight for when it comes to District 2 and this council. I remember, because I was raised in Oakland's Chinatown on the weekends. My grandparents lived in Oak Center Towers and they lived in St. Mary's Center. I remember a time when I came here on the weekends when Chinatown was so much more vibrant and it was doing so much better, and there was basic public safety. Now I see how the stores are closed up here in Chinatown by 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and people are living in daily fear. We have volunteer patrol teams, which I'm so proud of, but also that the fact that they have to step up and do this work means that our city is not providing basic city services to this community. And so I want to fight for this community. I've gone to Harvard University, I went to Columbia University, I've prepared to do this job, working in government, actually fighting for our community over and over again. Whether it was in New York City, when I went to these school desegregation meetings, they said there's too many Asians, in spite of the fact that so many of those kids were low income,
Thank you,
just
Ms.
like
Wang.
us here in Chinatown. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Wang. Our next candidate is Ms. Kanitha Matoury, proprietor chef.
Tôi tên là Kanitha Matoury, bố đi mình chỉ Kanitha Matoury. I'm learning. Originally from Cambodia, I speak Khmer. Any Cambodian in the house? No? I came from Cambodia, originally came here when I was 13 years old. Through humanitarian protection, was able to, both of my parents formed human right. My dad formed human right that's still standing. His name is Kai Matoury. My mom fought for abortion right, and they built hospital. And then we came here under protection. Thanks to the U.S., we were able to stay safe. I joined the military when I was in my 20s, did the Air Force for 9 years, studied finance at San Francisco State, and spent the rest of my life being a business owner, just right here down the street on Webster. 17 and Webster is where I've been. It's 18 years there. I had a restaurant called Spice Monkey. Many of you know me by. And I also have 2 daughters. I love Chinatown. I live right in front of Lincoln Park. It is really sad to see what is going on to our community. We are being terrorized and feeling unsafe. I walk the street every day. I see all my business and my working families are suffering. All our business are closing all across the board. And I am here to making sure that we're going to get service, which is essential. Clean street, restore all our businesses, and rebuild our community back.
Thank you, Ms. Matoury. Our next candidate is Ms. Cara Murray-Badal, Housing Policy Director.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I want to thank all of the sponsors and thank the moderators and thank all of you for being here, and especially thank the translators who are doing the amazing work of helping everyone be able to understand one another. I'm from District 2. I was raised in this district, and I love Oakland. I've always loved it, and specifically this area has been kind of a home for me as well because it is a hub of true culture and identity in the city. And I don't think I recognized how special Chinatown was until I went to other cities. I did my undergrad at Stanford, and I have a master's in public administration from Harvard and a business degree from Wharton. But it's very rare to have a community like this one that is truly a functioning Chinatown. And I went to my first school dance at Lincoln, and I come here on the weekends still, and I work a block away. And so it feels really, really important to support the folks who live here for me. I understand the fear and the things that are happening, the public safety concerns that we'll keep addressing, but I also see lots of sparks of hope here. I see the way that you all take care of one another, and I think it's a model for other parts of the city. And I want to support the work that's being done and support the culture that exists here already. And the sparks of light and joy and positivity here, I want them to grow and succeed so everyone feels safe in Chinatown and everyone feels safe in the district. It's the most diverse district in the city, and so if we can do this well, we can do Oakland well, we can do the state well, and especially at a time when times are really hard outside of Oakland, it feels really important to save ourselves here.
Thank you, Ms. Murray-Badal. Our next candidate is Reverend Kenneth Anderson, pastor.
Nihama to all of you and to the moderators. Thank you again for inviting me. My name is Reverend Kenneth Anderson, born and raised in Oakland, California. I pastor in Little Saigon on 10th Avenue, Williams Chapel Baptist Church, which is 86 years old. I've been pastoring there for 15 years. We feed 700 people every first Monday of each month right next to our partner, La Clinica de la Raza. I recognize so many of your faces. We also are building affordable housing for seniors, 68 units that will be in District 2. I'm running for this seat because I care. I love Chinatown. I appreciate the culture. I am married, happily married to an Asian descent wife, and I have 3 daughters who are of Asian descent. So we are all people that care about one another, and we want to make sure that we work together, because working together makes things happen. So this is my concern, making Chinatown even more safer, and maybe having the ticket signs a little lower so people can see the time on them. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Anderson. And finally, we have our last candidate, Mr. Harold Lowe III, financial planner and consultant.
Good evening, everyone. Is this on? I don't need it, but if it's not, okay. Good evening, everyone. First, before I start, I want to apologize because I'll have to leave at 6 o'clock because I'm leading a conversation at McClymonds High School for West Oakland Construction, and I'm the facilitator, so excuse me for that. I've been coming here since I was a little boy, and when I see this audience, I think about people who look like my grandmother. In fact, one of you looks like my grandmother, and I'm not going to look at you right now. But I remember going to the garden park. Franco Gabo was one of the reasons why I was able to be on the Oakland Youth Commission. I'm a member of the Chinese Chamber now, although I probably owe some money. And I've walked with the Angels. I'm a part of the community. My kids, we shop here. And so I want to make sure that they understand that this is part of their culture as well. One of the things that made me run again, because you saw me 2 years ago, is because the needs that this community had were not met. And one of the things that was really important to me was to look and say that over in the last century, there were 500 Chinatowns in the state of California. And I look across this audience and I thank you, youth, for being here, because we don't see youth a lot. And I still have a son who's in school here in Oakland Public Schools. I worry about the Chinatown 100 years from now. Will it be here? Are we supporting the people who are here? You know what I stand for safety. You know, as a planner, I care about budgets. You know, as someone who's a business owner. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. And now we'll move on to our question portion. Can I invite Diana Chan to ask the first question?
Hello， 各位好，各位晚安好。我叫 Diana， 我已經喺屋倫唐人街住咗10年以上，但今晚出席呢個活動嘅社區組織成員之一。呢個社區嘅組織係為8名唐人街嘅居民、企業主同埋工人，以及受到兇殺、搶劫、襲擊以及槍支暴力等嘅社區成員提供服務。你將採取邊一啲嘅措施嚟實施全面嘅公共安全？多謝，多謝。
Okay, so my name is Diana, and I have been a resident in Oakland, Chinatown for several 10 years, and I'm a member of one of the community-based organizations represented here tonight. These community-based organizations serve hundreds of Chinatown residents, business owners, and workers and community members impacted by violence, homicide, gun violence, robberies, assaults, and more. So what will you do to implement the comprehensive public safety?
Ms. Thomas, you're first to respond to this.
Well, what I would do about community safety, and it's a real problem all across, especially on this section of Oakland. Oakland has typically had some issues with violence, break-ins, and that sort of thing. But I think after COVID, things just got out of hand. And it just hasn't been good. But I think what's happening now with the new police chief is that violent crimes have come down. It's in the newspaper that violent crimes have come down, but break-ins and that sort of thing, that's still a problem. So what I would do is meet with the police chief and find out what is his, and also with the community here, and find out what are your ideas about what this police should be doing. I know that for a while they had more community policing here in the area after there was so much, violence with people being attacked. It was horrible. And that's one of the reasons why the last district attorney was recalled, because she was not taking care of the problems that we're handling here, that we were having with violence here in this community. So I think it's horrible when any community has to deal with, people who are aggressive and violent for no reason, just attacking people. It makes no sense. And since you're a vital part of this community, I would do everything that I could to stay in touch with the police department, make sure that we're having community policing, that I'm meeting with the community advisory councils in this community, and that people are feeling safe, because safety is number one. Everyone must feel safe, especially in Oakland. Thank you.
Hi, public safety is my top priority. Unfortunately, Oakland's Chinatown has made national news for being the epicenter of anti-Asian hate crimes. I myself, when I moved here, someone immediately screamed "Jap" at me. I actually had someone deliberately run their car at me in the streets and film me. And as a sick joke, I've experienced it for myself, that hate crimes that are here in Oakland, unfortunately, in spite of our amazing diversity. But the truth is that our community has been truly a target. And so I think there's a couple of things that we need to do here in Oakland. First of all, the 911 response rates are unacceptably long. You call 911, it takes over an hour in some months for a priority one phone call to be answered. We need to hire more officers. We really do. We are dangerously understaffed at the police department. The other thing we need to do is we do have really important work being carried out by our community patrol teams. This is a lot of work. Every day, people are patrolling our neighborhoods, but we need to bring in support with grant funding. I'm committing to have my office work with the community patrol teams to bring in as much grant funding as we can in order to help fund the patrol teams that do the important work of addressing the lower level of violence, to make sure that there's a presence every day, and that we can provide longer coverage, longer hours, because sometimes we can't rely just on the police, right? But the police are absolutely part of the solution, and that's exactly why I'm running, because I have been very frustrated with the City of Oakland and the fact that we cannot acknowledge right now that we have the 4th highest violent crime per officer ratio in the nation. That does not make a sustainable public safety system. So I want to change that. So this is my proposal when it comes to public safety. Thank you so much.
Ms. Matoury?
This is a great question. It's very dear to my heart because I've been a victim as a business owner. I have a car drive into my store. I've been robbed 4 times last year. We are afraid to report right now because we don't have insurance. As you know, some of you might experience, you have to get insurance from the state because regular private insurance doesn't insure business anymore. So when my dad died back in July of 2023, I decided to run because nothing is working here. And I am very frustrated, and I want to get in there and advocate for public safety because we travel from different countries to seek opportunity and to seek safety. Without safety, we simply don't have a town. My vision is to build a city for an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old where they all feel comfortable, and if that's the case, we'll have a thriving and a cool town. Chinatown, I live here, and it's really sad that everything's closed at 4, and all my neighbors said there's no business. And we are very active now that they have beat, all the senior walk together in their jacket, and it's really amazing how we need to kind of do that throughout the city of Oakland. So for me, it's definitely support the law enforcement to enforce law. Update all our technology to help being more effective and efficient. Staff correctly. If you don't have the staff, then you can't provide the service. Community policing, making sure that we support that. Everybody needs to connect with each other. And we need public safety in order to have a thriving town.
Ms. Murray-Badal?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this. So I've worked in public safety in a bunch of cities. I worked in Baltimore, Maryland, and Albany, New York. I led the transition team for the mayor of Boston. And then I was also on the Reimagining Safety Task Force here in the City of Oakland and ran their budget function. So I've gotten to work in a lot of cities on this issue of policing and trying to figure out how to keep citizens safe. I will say, I want to talk about the things that are amazing in Chinatown and the ways that you all have been resilient in this moment. You know, obviously there was the targeting that happened and the Asian hate that happened, and I think the brilliant, amazing part is the way that community rose in that moment. I got to watch Love Has Two Meanings, which I think was produced by AHS, and the tours that happened to understand, like, building community safety and understanding that from a holistic perspective is something that I think is enviable in lots of cities. It is an amazing force, and the fact that you have walkers here like Toy Shan, the fact that you have patrols inside of your own neighborhood and you have such strong community groups does support safety. And that said, there's still so much more that can be done and so much more that needs to be done. We talk about things closing early, and when I was on my walk with Toy Shan, what I was told is that a lot of folks don't feel safe being out at nighttime, especially if you're monolingual and don't feel like you can get the help that you need in those moments. And that is unacceptable. And so we absolutely need to figure out a public safety solution to that. I think that includes thinking about how we utilize our police officers. Everyone has talked about community policing, and that's really important. Getting more lights out and working on traffic safety is essential as well. And we have to be realistic that we're at a time where hiring police officers is really hard. And so if we can continue on that path, and we should continue to hire when we can, and also the community functions that exist inside of the city have made it so much safer and so much stronger, and we have to continue to build out that part of it as well. I think the last part is that we are hiring a bunch of new DAs, and liaising with the county is important too.
Reverend Anderson.
Thank you. When it comes to public safety, this is one of my #1 focuses. As a pastor in what is considered New Chinatown, Little Saigon, I see so much crime, so much violence. And even as I come to Chinatown daily, I see beautiful, beautiful senior women that remind me of my wife's grandmother. And I can only imagine, what if that was her being abused or robbed or taken advantage of? One thing I will say, I feel safe when I come to Chinatown. 30% of the Chinatown, you all have patrol officers, as it has already been stated. And we must continue to know that if we don't look out for one another, not just in Chinatown, but all over District 2, things will only get worse. So we must make sure that we never walk in fear. We must collaborate and promote law enforcement and community groups to reduce the crime, and make sure that these people that are doing this, they do the time. No sense of allowing anybody to get out of jail when they've harmed innocent people.
Mr. Lowe.
Well, I think there are 5 things that I want to have happen. I mean, the first one is that I believe that we should fully fund the police department. And that means funding the academies and making sure that we have enough police officers to be able to meet our needs. The second thing is we have to figure out a way to make sure that we don't have any encampments in this community. Any nearby encampments have to go. We can't have transient people being at risk for themselves or for you in the community. The next thing is we have to figure out a way to keep you safe, and that means slowing down traffic. We know that a lot of the crime that happens in this area happens because of people being on vehicles, and they're going back and forth, and they're going to freeways. We need to make sure that we slow down traffic, and maybe that means turnabouts or having one-way streets, or having streets that are protected where there are no vehicles so that the elderly and youth can be able to engage each other. I think lighting is a huge problem. And I want to have a force to be able to look and see what we have for lighting in the evenings so that people are protected and they have an ability to be able to walk around. Finally, we have to do something to be able to bring the youth back. And so there's an OK program that happens in East Oakland where the police officers work with the youth. They develop a better relationship with one another, and those are where your future officers come from. The angels who are here, we want them to be able to understand what it is if they care about law enforcement, that they're groomed by those officers to do that. I think those are 5 things that we can work on quite immediately. We can talk about what the streets look like, because that's a safety factor too. And we talk about what potholes look like. We can talk about the idea of having more business here, because when Chinatown is full, you have less opportunity for people to cause harm to you. So there's a whole bunch of factors that we can talk about in those spaces. I want to make sure I yield the time back to other people right now. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. The second question is regarding housing. What do you know about housing and homelessness in our community? What actions would you take as city councilor? Who are your thought partners on housing, and who will you be reaching out to address the challenges you've identified?
When it comes to housing, I am one that has been in the position for a decade now to build 68 units in District 2, Little Saigon, for seniors that are in poverty. Seniors are without housing right now at its highest. As council member, I would be sure to make sure that persons are educated to know how to qualify for these various housings, that they might be able to get in fairly and quickly. When it comes to housing, I'm not for profit housing. I want to make sure that housing is for all people, no matter what color they are. We're happy that we have various measures, Measure U, that is providing funds for various affordable housing. But we want to make sure that District 2 has all housing for all people, not just one ethnicity. When it comes to collaborating with organizations such as APEN and other initiatives, we must work together and make sure that they have a clear understanding when it comes to the location of housing, the need of the housing, and also making sure that it's fairness in the housing that is being given to all people.
Ms. Wang.
Affordable housing is so important for this community. My grandparents lived in low-income senior housing. We just heard the statistic in terms of how poor the Chinatown community is. That's why affordable housing and partners like EBALDC are so important. We need to make sure, especially with recently the regional affordable housing bond not being put on the ballot, that we find other sources to fund more affordable housing units here in Oakland. We could put a bond measure here locally here in Oakland to ensure that we fund that. The other thing is I'm proud to have worked in Massachusetts on reforming the homelessness response system. There are homeless Chinese and Asian Americans here in the city. And part of the issue is that people are being put on waiting lists instead of getting the help that they need quickly and with urgency. That's the work that I worked on in Massachusetts. It was given an award by Harvard University in recognition that this was innovative and taking people off the streets quickly into housing and with jobs to, for example, clean the blight, like pick up trash, clean up graffiti. There's opportunities to go galore to give people jobs and turn around their lives here in Oakland. The other thing too is we do need to close the encampments. I was dismayed to see, especially in preparation for the Lunar New Year, the fact that encampments had taken over Wilma Chan Park. This is our treasured park. Let's treat it with the gift that it is, but we really need to focus the attention at the very top level of our city heads. It needs to be made a priority for them, because right now the way that the encampments are being closed down across the city is prioritizing based off of when a homicide has occurred in them. To me, that is a very passive way of thinking about how to close down these encampments. Let's be more proactive, go out to these encampments and make sure that we get these folks into housing and services with the urgency that this problem deserves. Thank you so much.
Ms. Matoury.
Yeah, so with the unhoused, it's really alarming with what I learned. Just someone who joined the campaign last year. I deal with a lot of mentally ill and homeless because I have a market down the street and a grocery store. They always wander inside, and some of them, would take change out of the fountain or talk to themselves or losing their mind. It is really hard to see because that's someone's sister, brother, mother's son. It's crazy. So for me, housing, we definitely need to built more. Of course, there's a lot of great partners like Family Bridge, EBALDC, and there's a handful more that's built affordable housing. But I do believe that we need to, as a council, I will advocate for and legislate anything that would build faster, open for more competition, speedy permit, because if you guys are business owner, it's very complicated to conduct business in the city of Oakland. It take me 2.5 years to build a grocery store. Forget the housing. Grocery store, $500,000. Right now, as a small builder myself, it's $1,000 a square foot to build. It's not affordable. By the time you're done, the affordable unit is $1 million. So more inventory at all level, subsidized, affordable, market rate, ownership path to owning their own housing. That's what I think we need to work on. And it's, as a rich country as this place, we should be able to have this solution solved. I mean, I don't understand why it's so, $7.2 million was allocated to clean up the encampment. What happened there? Why is we are growing more? It's just like the more I learn, the more I'm just mind-blowing with the situation.
Ms. Murray-Badal.
So my day-to-day job is working in housing affordability, and so this issue is really close to my heart. I think specifically when we talk about Chinatown, because I think the question was about in this community, I think preservation is a huge portion of it. Obviously, there are lots of folks who've been living here and living in units for a long time, and those units aren't being well cared for and preserved. There are national funds, at least right now, that are specifically dedicated to preservation, and utilizing those funds and making sure that our seniors are well taken care of feels extremely essential. There's also the need to build affordable housing, and there actually are some funds coming in for this. I think Measure U was mentioned. Measure W is also a vacant property tax that might bring in as much as like $500 million for affordable housing funds. And my job is really about figuring out how to make those dollars go further, how to do mixed income units so that we have people from all different income levels, and how some of our market rate units can help subsidize affordable housing so that we can build even more housing and take care of people here. And then, of course, the problem of homelessness is extremely important. And I think we need to acknowledge that homelessness looks a bunch of different ways. And we talk about folks who are recently homeless. It's actually much easier to keep people in their homes than it is to try to rescue them from homelessness, even if they are newly homeless. And so I think the city has a big role in building stability for folks who are like one paycheck away from losing their housing because of a health crisis or a car crisis or a medical or like a food crisis. We have to build those kind of systems into the city. And there are innovative solutions that are happening around the country that are trying to build stability in so people can stay inside of their homes and don't lose their housing. So we can exit people from homelessness without entering new people in. I did want to just talk really quickly about the Oak Street cabins, which were here. And I think that's a great tale about how things can go well and how they can go badly. Because when you have someone who really understands the community of unhoused folks and how to serve them, you can get them housed quickly. But when we have transitional housing instead of permanent supportive housing, we sometimes lose the opportunity to get people into their houses, and that's important too. So more permanent supportive housing. Thank you.
Ms. Thomas.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, housing is a really big problem, and it's a big problem across the United States. Here in Oakland, in different communities, it's a big problem, but it's a big problem everywhere. So I think that people are working on there are various organizations, especially over in San Francisco. They're building complexes now, 180 with 180 units for seniors within 8 months. Okay, now a lot of them, they're prefabbed, so some of the contractors and some of the union people are not really for it, but they're getting them up. They need to perfect that because they have had some problems, but I think it's wonderful that they can now build housing a lot faster. And I think with housing, what we want to do is start with people who are unhoused. People living in their vehicles. They tell you, people when they're living in their vehicles or trailers, that's the best time to reach them and get them into housing. Once we get those people housed, then we can get the trailers and the trash and the broken down cars and all this stuff just out of here, right? Then you work on the people who are, living on the streets. And the people who don't live here, who are not from this area, they're not from Oakland, you send them to their families. That's what San Francisco is doing. Send them back, send them home to their families. And then the ones that we have to, that we can send social workers in to help them, we want to have units for them to be in. So I think there's a way that we can get housing in a lot quicker, and we can, absorb people, and we should have housing apartments for all different levels. Housing should be a human right. We should be providing housing for all of our citizens. Thank you.
I'll try to be brief. I think, so I have a 10-point plan to help revitalize Chinatown, and having a housing advisory group is part of that plan. One of the things that's really important is that you want your kids to come back. You want your grandkids to come back. You've done really well by protecting them. They go to great schools. They graduate. They don't want to work for the business anymore. They want to become doctors and not store owners, but you need them back in the community. When we talk about the Chinatowns across the state, we're experiencing the same thing, but this is the hub for the East Bay. And the way that we bring people back to make sure, by the way, Chinatown is declining. The Chinese population is not keeping pace with everybody growing in Oakland. So to make sure that we have people coming back, we want to make sure that we're building Chinatown again. And the way that we do that is we have mixed-use housing, because some of you want swimming pools, some of you want to be able to have internet. And by the way, 70% of the people who live in Chinatown, last time I ran, had no access to internet. So that's why it's important to have mixed-use housing and not just have low-income housing. You need to have the benefits that other people get. So we want to bring people back by having affordable housing with mixed-use housing, with housing that will support families. That has to happen. We also want to make sure that we have an ability to be able to work with other people to make that happen in, like I said, groups like EBAYC, NAACP, BWAPA, those folks that want to be able to help, and looking at this as being an enterprise zone to be able to make that happen. I do think that for housing, we also have to look at the homeless or the unhoused position. I told you a couple of years ago, and I have not wavered, I think that we should be utilizing old spaces that we have for the county, and we should be utilizing the old jail. There's room to be able, if we do it right, we can have services for them to be able to rehabilitate themselves, but we also have room for 1,200 people.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Our next question is from a resident, Lily Zhu.
大家好，我叫丽丽，我是 APEN 组织的会员，我目前居住在 Oakland 的2区。我今天是有个双重的问题，第一个问题是是非题。市政府和社区一直在携手努力，致力于在今年破土动工的新建林肯广场公寓休闲中心内建设市府首个韧性中心。这个雄心勃勃的项目被立为市政府资本改善计划和社区的首要任务，旨在对已受信任的公共公寓进行现代化的改造，强化文化保护，并提升气候的韧性。我们能否指望你支持推进该项目，避免进一步的延误？第二个问题，就在几个月前，市政府大幅度的削减了对文艺和文化的资金的支持。作为一个市的议员，你将如何在未来努力保护该社区的文化身份？你会优先考虑哪些合作伙伴组织的和资源？谢谢。
Hi, good evening, candidates. My name is Lily, and I'm a long-time resident in Oakland, Chinatown. And now my question is a yes or no question. The City and community have been working together on the ambitious goal of building the city's first resiliency center as part of the new recreation center at Lincoln Square Park set to break ground this year. The ambitious project is a top priority for the city's capital improvements program and the community as it modernizes a trusted public park, emphasizes cultural preservation, and increases climate resiliency. Can we count on your support to push this project ahead without further delays? And my second question, just a few months ago, the city made major cuts to art and culture funding. How will you as a council member work to protect the cultural identity of the neighborhood moving forward? And what partner organizations and resources will you prioritize? Thank you.
Yes, when it comes to the Lincoln Center, I know how important this effort is. It is going to be transformative for Oakland's Chinatown and bring us together and provide a space for not only just our youth, but as well as our elders to have really important programming for our day-to-day well-being. I've already been privileged to sit in on some meetings with Gilbert Gong and Tiffany Ang, as well as Karen Dia, who have been leading this effort, and I'm proud to support them. I'm also someone with my day job, I work at EPA, and that resiliency grant, that is something that is being funded by the federal government. I have the know-how, given the uncertainty during this Trump administration, to navigate that process to make sure that that funding is going to remain and will not be at risk. And in addition to that federal grant, we're going to need to bring in additional funding from private sources to make sure that all the operational needs, the programs, the arts, the Tai Chi, the things like that that will be provided can be funded, not just the capital improvement side of things. And then the other question was around major cuts to the arts. So one of the things that I'd like to do, because we are facing a budget deficit and I don't want to make false promises that I can't keep, is the fact that when it comes to our critical arts and funding, I will be using my office holder account to ensure that we contract with somebody to ensure that we can provide more grant funding to work with organizations like OACC to bring in that grant that will fund so many of the important things that we need. The arts to me is so critical to the preservation and the resilience of this community, and I have the capacity, especially as someone who helps communities apply to grants in my day-to-day job, to ensure that we can continue to preserve that funding here in Oakland. And beyond just grants too, we also, I'm interested, and I'm out of time, so I will leave with that. Thank you so much.
Ms. Murray-Badal.
Yes. It's hard because that question was prefaced on cuts, but it actually makes me so excited to get to talk about culture in Chinatown. So first things first, I absolutely support the Lincoln Resiliency Hub, and I'm really excited about the possibilities there. The former council person, along with a lot of community groups, worked really hard to make that funding available, and I'm super excited for it to break ground next fall. Beyond that, when talking about arts and culture, I think we talked about before, this is an actual working Chinatown, and the culture of this space is extremely important. The fact that there is a library directly below us that is an access point to help other people learn about Chinatown. And I think Chinatown is for everyone. We absolutely have to protect the culture, but we also want to bring folks in. And when we look at the business opportunities, building opportunities for more businesses so Chinatown does feel full, but that those businesses are actually investing in Chinatown and hopefully can support the arts and cultural portions of the work being done here. I think the other interesting thing about the Lincoln Park preservation that's happening is that it means that Lincoln Park, which is the most used recreation center, will be sort of unavailable for a little bit, which is a little bit scary, but also an opportunity to hopefully strengthen some of our other areas like Wilma Chan Park or Lions Club or Family Bridges. And there's already this really cool thing that's happening with AHS and EBALDC in I didn't shout out EBALDC earlier, but the amazing work that they're doing, but to make EBALDC and AHS, and also like connecting that to the BART station and having that all be integrated. So I think there's really exciting opportunities, even with the cuts, around how to take care of culture. The last thing I want to say is, obviously, I am African American. Chinatown overlaps with the Black arts movement as well, and I do think it's extremely important to think about the fact that we are all folks who were just like have been marginalized in this community and can come together to build culture. When I came to the New Year Festival here, I was gobsmacked by like how good it feels when those cultures are connecting, and I really want to preserve that as well.
Ms. Thomas.
Hello. Yeah, that's a really good question. In fact, that's one of the reasons why I'm running for City Council, because I've been gone from Oakland for a while. All my family's here, but I was, in Sacramento, and I moved back last year. I moved back because there's just so much dysfunction, so many things going on. But the other thing I noticed is that the art and the culture is like gone. The recreation departments that we grew up with, that I grew up with as a child, they had so many programs for kids. They don't offer any of that anymore. They would take us on day trips. They would just do everything. We'd be swimming, we're sports, art, music, lots of stuff to do. And that's why I will support everything that this community wants to do as far as the Lincoln Project funding. I will support all art programs and projects, because I think it's vital to the just to the flow and just for the survival of our community. That's what makes us so rich, and that's why there's so many great people that come from Oakland. Sheila E., she's a great artist. Prince, he used to come here to get all of his his musicians and stuff. We have great athletes. There's so many great people that come from this Bay Area, from Oakland, and so I will do all that I can to work with different community organizations and with the community to make sure that we are expanding those organizations and that we're growing. And I've done contracts, so I know where the money is. Department of Justice has a lot of money for security for different communities, but also there are a lot of state contracts and grants that are available to help our communities and enrich our communities with more art programs. Thank you.
Yeah, this is very exciting. I remember coming to see the planned reveal. I think it was in Peony when the fundraising, and it was a drawing. And I think I volunteered to pour wine or something. That's many years ago. So I cannot wait to help push this process forward. I do believe that a healthy space for the youth and the senior is something that's very important. I literally live across the street. I moved here 6 years ago, and I fell in love with Chinatown. And I think that having a new center is going to be really amazing. For the business to preserve, for sure, support the business that's still here. Some of the business have been here for many, many years. They are like the multiple generation. We definitely need to preserve them and support them and incentivize them to stay around, because business owner work tirelessly, like myself, for many, many years. I own a restaurant for 14 years and still a market. So keeping them some kind of incentive and clean up the street. I'm looking at policy like advocating for incentive, for credit, for property owners to clean up blight. And there's a lot of graffiti, board ups, and vandalism all over Chinatown that need to clean up. And so when we walk the street, we can come and do business every morning. We feel proud and clean. Looking at also a way to get grant, or working with private, Green Line Capital, who are funding access to immigrant and minority owns, and providing this access to making sure that doing both with the landowner who have empty storefront, and to give them some kind of incentive to work with new business that can come in and kind of plan their business there. I have a lot of idea. I'm a creator and builder. I'm a business owner, so I'm excited to work on this kind of project.
Reverend Anderson.
To the support of the wonderful plans for the Lincoln Park preservation, I am absolutely supportive of it. When you go to various cities, you just about will have a Chinatown. That is remarkable. All around the world, just about, there's a Chinatown. And you can learn about the culture. I was speaking to some college students that are going to Cal Berkeley as we speak. They're freshmen. And I asked them where they were living and why they didn't want to live in the dorms. And they said, oh, well, I'd rather live close to Chinatown because it reminds me of home. And they were very, very excited that they had some form of culture that they were able to connect with. As it was mentioned, African American and the Chinese culture have celebrated their history in the month of February. When it comes to cuts, when it comes to the cultural arts for the young people, it would be nice that if we have so much funds available for these kind of arts, that it could be shared among a variety of cultures, but Chinatown being the model to see that they are very, very indebted to their children and to their children's children. So I think if we collaborate and continue to work together and make sure that our young people are our future, and when it comes to Chinatown, this is such a rich, rich history that should be a model to all cultures in all kinds of cities.
Mr. Lowe.
Thank you. First, if you saw me doing this, it had nothing to do with you. I'm really late for my meeting, so I wanted to make sure I answer this last question because it's very important to me. Yes, for the link in resiliency. The next thing is art is very important to me. There's somebody in the audience here with me, and we served in the Plural Arts Gallery Board for several years together. I was the treasurer, and I was also the president of Pro Arts Gallery. So I understand what the impact is for art in our community. One of the things that's interesting is that art is also part of my plan. And so when we were talking about what it is to be able to preserve art, I do think that there are resources that we can use in the Parks and Recreations group to be able to augment that. And we can have students participate in art there. Also, I'm fortunate enough over the last dozen years, I've helped raise $10 million for philanthropic efforts. I helped raise $750,000 last year just for Oakland Lacrosse. And by the way, Oakland Lacrosse started in Chinatown here. So we were able to get youth from Oakland to participate in those sports. So when we talk about arts and entertainment and engagement, I'm already doing that work. I want to make sure that we talk about making sure that we have those centers where we can participate. And again, thank you so much for having me today. You know I'm not going to leave you. I've been here my entire life. I just wish I could answer some of the other questions, and hopefully we can have a conversation at another time. Thank you.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Joao. I'm 16 years old. I'm an intern with APAL. And I'd like to talk to you about youth and mental health in Chinatown. So Chinatown has been long been a vibrant but undeserved community where youth face an increasing disconnect and a lack of accessible programs. So given the city's budget deficit, what steps will you take to expand mental health resources and youth engagement programs? And also, how will you ensure that the city staff are more responsive to Chinatown's needs?
Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. I had the opportunity, I try to read, I don't know, a few papers every day. Chronicle is one of them, New York Times, Philadelphia Inquirer. So I try to just see what's going on across the country and here in the Bay Area. And in reading the Chronicle, I think it was October of last year, I have the article here with me. October, there was an article about the Asian Health Services group, and it's down here in Chinatown. And the lady who is actually over the group, she has taught people how to, she's trained people to provide what they call lay counseling. And I think that is so groundbreaking. You know, that's something that can change a lot of things because that's what people need, you know, and that is happening here in Chinatown, that people are taking care of each other. Because a lot of people, not just in the Asian community, but a lot of communities, in African American community too, they, you know, people are reluctant to seek seek help and ask people for help for whatever problems they may be having. So the lay people here, I guess, meet people where they are, find out what their needs are, if they need help getting, getting out, getting meals, going grocery shopping, or just someone to talk to. They're teaching those skills. And so I think it's really a great program, and it needs to be expanded across the city. I will definitely do all that I can to fight for mental health, because mental health, that's what's really disrupting our community. There are too many people unhoused with mental health issues. And once we get to the bottom of that, we'll be able to take care of so many other things. But, we have a lot of complex problems that are going to need some serious effort from everyone. So I'm willing to put the time in
Thank you.
and work for it. Thank you.
Ms. Matoury.
Youth and mental and disconnect is a big thing. So for me, I have a preteen, a 12-year-old and a 15-year-old. They're both girl. They're mixed race. I was married to an Israeli for 20 years. I am from Cambodia, also grew up there, but also a mixed race. I'm a background Chinese, Vietnamese, Malaysian, Cambodian. So I grew up, with, again, mixed race. So dealing with identity, social problem, peer pressure, disconnect, it's something that I'm aware of, and I would support any service that's definitely for the youth, because the youth is our future, and it's very important to support the youth. They're going through a lot, and especially with the internet and everything else that's all happening. I see my children, when what happened in COVID, they literally, the only thing that they're connected to is their cell phones and social media, and they literally are raising our children. It's very scary, and there's a lot of mental ill and social depressions are happening. This is something that I am a very big advocate for, getting out, and I've been very blessed to run a very popular restaurant, and any giving hour of shift, we have 30 people because we have so many different services, and we employed so many different age bracket, everything from 17 to 65. With live music, catering, day-to-day operation, deli market. So that's just the kind of space that we want to bring back. If we can restore some of this business to stay alive, the coffee shops and restaurants, which is all dying all over the street, these are positive space that they can go and get connected. And we definitely need to support all that, and especially senior with youth. I think in this country, there's not a lot of senior and youth are kind of hanging out together. Like in my country, all the grandparents live together and
Thank you.
more interactive.
Reverend Anderson.
What a wonderful question. Our youth are today, not tomorrow, and mental illness is real. As a father of 3 biracial daughters of Asian descent, 10 years old, 2 years old, 1 year old. One has autism, and she requires a lot of activity. I'm happy that there are resources here within Chinatown, as well as Alameda County, that has 24/7 hotlines that they can communicate with specialized counselors. At our church, we opened up a cafe right next to La Clinica de la Raza, which will provide jobs for young people, and as it was mentioned, for seniors. It's important to realize that the problems that you might have faced when you were young are no longer the current problems of today. So you have to be very, very patient with acknowledging that you have a problem, you have a mental illness. So it's important for us to acknowledge that this is a need for us to invest in our young people and have them be involved. And when you hear about their problems, let it not be something too harsh to our young people, because when you're very harsh to them, they won't listen to you. So you have to hear them and then find resources that will help them, and then make sure that they feel very loved. And I believe young people and seniors are the best combination because you get a little bit of everything at one time.
Ms. Wang.
There's two parts to this question. First, how to bring more mental health resources at large here to Oakland. First, I'd like to push, because it is part of the key responsibility of the county to provide health services as well as mental health services. We have programs like Macro here in Oakland that need to be co-administered alongside the county, especially when we're facing a budget deficit, to bring in those resources and to also improve the delivery and reform that Macro program to be as best as it possibly can be, so we can take those who are mentally ill off the street and get them the services that they need. We also have at the Alameda County level something called the Care Court system, where we can help compel people and get people the substance use treatment that they need, as well as the mental health treatment that they need. When it comes to the Asian community in particular, mental illness, unfortunately, is incredibly stigmatized. I see Elaine Peng in the audience. She heads up in such important work with mental health for Chinese communities. This is the kind of work that we need to uplift here. My own family struggled with mental illness and saw the fact that we don't have culturally appropriate services. And so often that leaves devastating impacts on our families. It really does. And so what I'd like to do is really push to ensure that whenever there is public funding, that our community is thought of. Because I used to sit on the board of the Family Violence Law Center because of my own experiences with domestic violence. And what I saw in that social service is that we had services being provided here in the city for those in English, those in Spanish, but there was nothing being provided in Asian languages. That is a shame. It really is, because we know that our community struggles with domestic violence. How could there not be that service available in our language? And so I pushed from within that position of power to make sure that our community could be served. Thank you so much.
Ms. Murray-Badal.
I actually agree with what a lot of Charlene said there. I think specifically the county, or I will say Oakland, ends up serving a lot more folks than what it is funded for from the county. And one of the really good things about having the former city council person in this seat now on the Alameda County Board of Supervisors is I think there is someone there fighting to pull funds from the county into the City of Oakland. And particularly when it comes to Asian Health Services, which is an amazing organization that people want to come, especially like I think Asian American folks want to come to Oakland to seek out their health services because there are resource-specific services for that community. And so it's extremely important to make sure that that is funded well. I think it's great that people want to come to Oakland for that, and we should absolutely be getting funding that matches the amount of work that we do in that space. I will add specifically about young people I think broadly, but also specifically in Chinatown, our young people just experienced a pandemic while their brains were still developing. They have had an extremely rough go, and it is extremely important to figure out how to support them in this moment. I also have siblings who are quite young. My dad made some choices, and so I have a 16-year-old brother and a 13-year-old sister, and I'm obsessed with them. They are my favorite people on the planet, and they are deeply, I think they have a deep disadvantage in terms of the way that they are being raised, and that third spaces, like places like parks and social spaces, are just not as well utilized. And so I think having these really incredible specific mental health services is huge, and also having like spaces for our young people to build together and to be outside and to get outside of their homes after experiencing something so traumatic is like an obvious thing. And it's like one of those pieces where if you try to pull out one thing by itself, you'll find it hooked to everything else in the universe. And having public spaces and taking care of our city for our young people is essential as well.
Thank you, candidates.
Hello, candidates. My name is Stephanie Tran. I am the president of the Oakland Chinatown Chamber of Commerce. I'm also a resident of District 2 and a small business owners. So many Chinatown merchants are concerned with the city's budget deficit and the city's ability to provide resources to maintain a thriving business community. What policies and specific steps or plan will you implement in the next year to support small businesses in District 2, and how will they be funded?
Ms. Wang, please start.
Hi, yes. I really, this is one of my priorities to ensure that small businesses can thrive in Chinatown. Here's a few things. First, we know that the crime has been really one of the key issues that prevents Chinatown businesses from succeeding. You know, I'm devastated, for example, when we hear stories about like the robbery of feng jewelry. And it costs thousands of dollars for businesses to be able to repair their storefronts, put in the necessary security apparatus to prevent these things from happening again. What I'd like to do is to actually work with philanthropic organizations like JP Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo. We have the California Endowment Foundation to make sure that we can stand up a Victims of Crime Small Business Fund to provide support to small businesses specifically who've been victimized by crime. The other thing is I'd like to look at ensuring that we can actually have lower taxes for new businesses in Chinatown in the very first year that they form. That way we can actually create more. We have a lot of vacant storefronts. I just see all the blight that is happening here in Oakland, in Oakland, Chinatown. Too many vacant storefronts. I want to incentivize more small businesses to start to proliferate here in Oakland. The other thing that I want to do is one of the reasons that we don't have enough foot traffic here to Oakland is the fear of crime. Like, let's create partnerships with Uber and Lyft, as well as DoorDash. I notice not enough of our small businesses are actually using delivery services. Let's do that. And so that more of our small businesses have the ability to use delivery services and bring in more business, even when we don't have the foot traffic that we need. And finally, what I really want to do, and I'm proud to say is part of my work of the Biden-Harris administration, that work is actually bringing $2 million here to repair the walkway between Jack London and Chinatown, and look at that. We need to have investments to create a more friendly urban environment here to Oakland, in Oakland's Chinatown. Thank you so much.
Ms. Thomas.
I really think that's one of my favorite areas is business. Being a person who's been involved in business and owned my own business and been very successful with it, I built, ran, and operated and sold a multi-million-dollar communications corporation in Sacramento, and now I'm back here in Oakland to really help the city start generating some income. There's some things that the city can do immediately that will start generating income here in Chinatown and in District 2. There are so many closed, blighted areas that the city owns, properties. Those properties should be available to the people in the community to just move in, get everything cleaned up, give them a 7-year lease, you know. Anyone with 3 to 5 years of business experience and great credit, let them move in. First year, no payments, right? Then you get graduated payments to start building out to build out and then build up your business. And while they're building it up, they don't make any payments. So after the end of the first year, or even 18 months, that's when they'll get graduated payments. But immediately they will start generating income once they open up, and tax revenue will start coming to the city, and that's what we need. Like I said, Oakland has 26 departments and no Department of Commerce. We need to get businesses here going, especially here in Chinatown. There's lots of money available for businesses, even with partners. We can partner with people in San Francisco. There's a lot of money that's out to help people build businesses, and I think Chinatown would be great would be able to receive a lot of that money and then build out Chinatown and make it more, just more fruitful for everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Matoury.
Supporting small business is my jam. So I like to say I have book smart and street smart at the same time, and it's been a blessing because I did have the opportunity to go to school right after the Air Force and studying finance, which is money and budgeting and resource. I like to say I survived the most difficult business, which is called restaurant, for 14 years, not because I was a Michelin star chef, but I was very good with people and budget and money and very creative, and that's what it is. And I bring the right people to perform a job, which is beside food and drink, which is what every restaurant, but it's all the different things that's come with it. So what I would like to do for the small business community, which is, there's so many different things. First of all, we're going to need to start with clean and safe street. And that's going to be a big thing because all business are pretty creative. And some of them, as you see, even though they've been in business for 20 years, they're going out of business. It's not because they're not creative and not because they're not great. It's just because that the city have failed them. So we need to clean up the street and safe street for all the business to thrive, for shopper to feel safe. So people feel safe to come down and shop and not like, oh, well, my car's going to get bipped or I'm going to get robbed along the way. Looking for resources to help, like private resources, like I mentioned some, Main Street Launch, Green Line Capitals, and many more. I was in the Air Force for 9 years. I was sitting on a board with some of these funding because there's like, how do you call it, tax and fee that's coming from different sector, like, guns and alcohols and different things that you can tap into. And you can look at my website. I'm going to launch all of that. And what else? Incentive program for people to shop local. Because I believe if you shop local or keep your money here, and it will strengthen your community. Because if you shop somewhere else, all your tax dollar is going somewhere else. So having some kind of incentive program for people to shop local and keep it local.
Reverend Anderson.
Thank you. I'm very in the category when it comes to small business as a pastor as well as a owner of a cafe. It requires safety. People are not going to come to a church. People are not going to come to a store. People are not going to go to a restaurant if they don't feel safe. And if they don't feel safe, that means the business doesn't thrive. So I want to leverage programs, as my components have mentioned very well, programs like the Oakland Business Sustainability Program to help local businesses thrive and grow. There should be also opportunities for owners that happen to be women, to give them more support, or either people of color. We must make sure that we find various resources that can provide lighting. I remember the City of Oakland had programs like that for small businesses. If you needed more lighting, that's something that businesses really need to see lighting when they go to their places of choice at night, that they feel safe when they're going in and when they're leaving. Also, we must make sure that we be our brother's keeper. Various businesses are constantly getting robbed, and they're scared to even tell their insurance companies because they don't want anything, their policies to be dropped. So as City Council D2, I would be very supportive of small businesses because when the businesses thrive, the communities thrive.
Ms. Murray-Badal.
Yeah, okay, small businesses. So I think one of the major problems when it comes to supporting small businesses in Chinatown, I think, is that we have had grants come down for small businesses, and they disproportionately do not make it to Chinatown. They also don't make it to Fruitvale. Some of our cultural hubs are often left behind when we have small business grants. And so I think as a city council person, it's extremely, it is well within my purview, it is part of my job to support the cultural districts and specifically support Chinatown and making sure that they get the proportion of grants that they deserve. I think the other thing to think about in Chinatown is that commercial rents are really expensive. Obviously, Chinatown is right near downtown, but the services and the things that are sold here are often at a much lower price point than what exists in other parts of the city. And so having the commercial rent actually be right-sized for what is being sold and the amount of profits that are able to be made in the city is really, really important and something we haven't done. The other thing I'll mention is graffiti as a part of the problem. We talked about break-ins quite a bit, but a lot of store owners are experiencing graffiti on their storefronts. And right now the city can fine you for the graffiti on your storefront that obviously you had nothing to do with. And so I think figuring out supportive programming and working with the city to support business owners when graffiti happens instead of penalize them is really core to what needs to be done. The obvious other thing is that there are a lot of legacy businesses here in Chinatown and people who are aging out of those businesses. And so we talked a little bit about, ideally you would have family who would take over those businesses, but when that's not an option, there are like programs that work on training employees to do that work, or even working with someone else outside of the business at the moment to come in and take over the business so we don't lose these small businesses that are already existing as folks are getting older. Yeah, and I think that maybe the last thing is there are some really cool things happening already when it comes to businesses. Like when I look at the Lantern Festival that happened in the evening right in this plaza, it's really exciting to see the possibilities of young people in the city, and we should support that.
For a final question, we are grateful that Oakland is a sanctuary city and that we now have access to a rapid response hotline. What will you do to help immigrants at risk of deportation get access to linguistically appropriate services, such as Know Your Rights education for undocumented API immigrants?
Regarding the tragedy that is taking place in our country when it comes to immigrants, it is absolutely heartbreaking to see families and children being deported back to their countries. It's important that we as citizens and persons in government of City Council make sure that it's an obligation for public buildings, public parks, that you have some form of Know Your Rights mandatory, that people can be able to come, rather it's to your synagogue, to your church, to your local community park, and advocate and make sure that they know their rights and that they cooperate correctly and not walk in fear. I think it's important to not focus on one culture. I think we should focus on all cultures right now that are being considered to be sent back to their home if they are not a permanent resident of the United States.
Ms. Thomas?
Immigration and deportation has gotten to be a very serious problem in the United States of America now. And I think it's a blessing that we're all here in a sanctuary city. And the thing that we need to do is to work with law enforcement, work with our communities, with the city council, and with groups that are working with people to make sure that they're not being, deported by ICE. And also protesting, places like Dublin. They're trying to turn that into a center where they're going to send everyone before they deportate, before they send them out of the country. I think it's horrible. So I think that we need to stand firm. The city council should put out a declaration and say that, we are a sanctuary city. We're standing strong with all of our immigrant families because we're all immigrants. I grew up here in Oakland. It's a melting pot. I grew up with, Chinese neighbors, Hispanic neighbors. During Christmas time, Barbara Padilla, her mother would fix tamales, and during Chinese New Year, we had Chinese neighbors, and they would, bring us all this fruit, these beautiful apples off their apple trees, and so we have so much richness in this community that we need to protect it. We need to protect each other and embrace one another and make sure that we're all watching out for each other and that no one is being deported from Oakland. Thank you.
Ms. Murray-Badal?
So when it comes to immigration, I think there's a few things. We already talked a little bit about the lack of translation, and I think there are just not as many resources for folks as there are Hispanic resources, and that is obviously something that is lacking in the city, and so working to get our services translated well for all of the different folks who might be affected by the new federal things that are coming down. Specifically ALC and El Centro and EBCLC, I know, do a lot of this work, and I think supporting them and continuing that work and making sure that things are translated is really important. Beyond that, though, a sanctuary city status is great. It means that our police officers will not deport people themselves. But we also work with CHP, and there's been calls to bring the FBI in. So we have to be thoughtful about the people who we allow into our city in order to protect the people who are already here, which is essential. I think the other part of that is that community is really, really essential when it comes to bringing a brave face in and like supporting our immigrant neighbors. I think having a county-wide response is essential because Oakland is a small city, but when we put ourselves in the context of the greater Bay Area, we have a lot of power and we have a lot of resources. So coordinating with our neighbors to be really clear about the way that we're taking care of our immigrant neighbors is essential. I think the other part of that is making sure that all of our neighbors are aware of what's happening in communities and there are networks to communicate inside of neighborhoods and cities. I've heard it talk of like a hotline potentially. I think it's even more effective when we can utilize neighborhood precincts and community groups to get information out quickly. And just reminding all of Oakland citizens that when we don't take care of our immigrant neighbors, it puts us all at risk. I think the thing that is happening now nationally is that there's a lot of policy that is divisive, that is hurting specific communities. And if we don't stay together, then we are at risk of losing every community. And so for me, it feels extremely essential to get everyone involved in the response and take care of our immigrant neighbors, which is part of like making sure that Chinatown is well integrated with the rest of the city.
Ms. Matoury.
Hello. As you guys know, I am the only immigrant here. I came here when I was 13 years old with no English. I did not speak English at all. I was shoved in a plane with a couple UN and arrived in the US. So for me, it's very, I would love to protect every immigrant. I believe everybody here is coming from somewhere except for the native, or else we're all immigrated from somewhere and just, different time. So for me, the sanctuary city, I'm so glad that in this very difficult time of our country, we are living here in the Bay Area. So I would work with all and get to know every program that's already exists, that already working with all the immigrants that is in this situation, making sure that they have the access to all the different help in terms of like attorneys and different law protection, knowing their right in every language. These are very sensitive time and these are very vulnerable time. And I have experienced those myself. As a humanitarian protection, which is on my website, I published the paper that I came here with, is I didn't have the right to become a citizen. It took me forever. I became a citizen like in my 20s. But again, knowing your right and being able to, following the laws. I was in the Air Force, and all the different things is very important. So making sure that we're reaching out and making sure that everyone know what is available to them.
Ms. Wang.
Hi, yes, so I was privileged when I served in the Biden-Harris administration on the White House New Americans Task Force, and part of my work there was really ensuring whether you're undocumented or documented, immigrants need something, they need legal services because the legal American system is confusing enough as it is to navigate. It's even more dangerous and more confusing when whether you're undocumented or you're a legal immigrant, very confusing. The other thing is it's specific to the Trump administration. Not only are they deporting undocumented immigrants, but the Trump administration is racking up a trade war with China. And we know that the geopolitics of this administration put a target on this community. It really does, and so because of that, we really need to ensure that there's protections for this community. We've even seen in other states where legal immigrants no longer had the right to purchase land, no longer had the right to purchase a home. These are the things that we're going to need to push back against as an Asian community here in Oakland, Chinatown. But beyond just the fear of deportation, there's also the reality that day to day, what people really need to get by is jobs and employment. And so I really want to ensure that our immigrant-owned businesses, that when we're talking about support for small businesses, that we ensure that the immigrant community, folks who do not speak English, are provided the necessary city services in order for that business owner to thrive and therefore them to provide gainful employment to those who are both documented and undocumented immigrants. Finally, I just want to say that even directly within the city government, we have the capacity we should pursue the capacity to be able to hire immigrants directly into the city government, including into first response services that are especially critical during this time when undocumented communities do not feel safe calling 911. Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidates. We've arrived to the closing comments by our candidates. Each candidate will have 2 minutes on the clock for their portion, and we're going to go in reverse order from their introductions, starting with Reverend Anderson.
Again, thank you so much for having me to be a part of this beautiful august body of beautiful individuals. Again, I am running for this position because I care about Oakland. I care about District 2. I have served with several mayors. I've served with several council members of District 2 throughout the 15 years that I have pastored. I'm building affordable housing for seniors right in Little Saigon. We feed the less fortunate every first Monday of each month. Over 700 people come to our church. We also have a school we're starting in a couple of months for little children. Right in District 2, we're partners with La Clinica de la Raza, who are leases from us. So I'm very, very involved with District 2. At the end of the day, whoever is the winner for District 2, I am still going to be in District 2, and I want to make sure that Chinatown, all of District 2, is safe, and that they are valued, and that it's not just what Crocker Highland has to say, but what about Chinatown? What does Chinatown needs? Because if we don't help one another as a district, things will only get worse. So I'm asking for you to vote for Rev. Kenneth Anderson come April 15th. Thank you.
Ms. Badal.
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me one more time. When I look out into this crowd, I see so many familiar faces of folks who are working inside of Chinatown and who are committed to Chinatown. And so it feels really exciting to be in this room with all of you, because I'm really excited for what we can build together. And I think it's absolutely the role of a city council person to work to understand the needs of the community, work with the community groups, and then try to support that as best we can. And I'm deeply committed to doing that inside of Chinatown. I love this district, and I love the work that's being done here, and I think we have a real opportunity, even though things are hard and there's budget cuts. I think the work that we are all doing and the investment that we all put in is a core to the possibilities in the future that we want here. And so I'm really excited to do this with all of you. Thank you so much.
Ms. Matoury.
Well, as you know, this has been a great journey for me. Back in, when the car crashed into my store just down the street on 17 and Webster down here, that day was not just a wake-up call how our city is so broken and there's so many things that needed to be changed. And then when my dad died in 2023, that was enough for me, that I realized that I had to step up and do something, because the guy built human right for us the ability to vote. So please vote. April 15, vote for Kanitha Matoury. And here's the reason why. I've been here for 20 years, just down the street. I have lived the experience that you live every day with you. I share the same problem on the other side. And I'm an immigrant. I live in Chinatown. And we know the same struggle. So I am ready to go into City Hall. It takes one of us to represent all of us. And I'm going to go in there. We'll prioritize you is the priority. And what Oakland needs to provide is called service. What I have chose to do for 18 years of my life is to provide service in the food and beverage, entertainment, and art. And now I am ready to make our city a better place to live, so we can all thrive and where we can all love where we live. That's my campaign slogan. And the core issues is what I'm going to focus on is my 3R, which is restore public safety, revitalize all our small business, and rebuild connection through our community. And that will be all my focus. Thank you.
Ms. Wang?
Hey everyone, what's really important about this election, especially for the Asian community, is that if we do not get an Asian representation on the seat, we will have no one in our city leadership to represent our voices. And that's really important. I have spent my career seeing how the way when there is not someone who's in the room who really understands our struggles, the way that we get overlooked for services consistently. Whether it was what I told you about earlier, about when I went to a school meeting, they said there's too many Asians in this school, even though most of those kids were on free and reduced lunch. Or at the EPA, where I discovered that Asian American children actually have the highest exposure to lead in our lead levels. And yet at the EPA, there was nothing that said that acknowledged that in our materials. Or in the Biden-Harris administration, where I fought to ensure that funding would go to Chinatowns when we were talking about restoring communities that were destroyed by the highway system. I have consistently been that fighter for the Asian community, and I want to do that in this role. But I'm not going to be able to do it if you don't get out and vote. Okay, that's very important. So tell your friends, okay, you got to get out the vote. Our community often just gives up and says, we don't want to get involved in politics. This is the reason that we have no power and nobody really listens to our needs. So get out the vote, tell your friends, tell them to vote. Okay, I'm telling you, even if you don't vote for me, it is so important that this is America. Okay, we have to engage in this political process, and I'm asking you to definitely exercise your right to vote. Tell your friends, okay? Very important. And 投票4月15号，谢谢。投票，王莎玲。
Ms. Thomas?
Okay, is it, okay. I just want to thank you so much for having me here, and I think it's an honor to be running for District 2, my favorite district in Oakland. I think we have the best and the worst of Oakland right here in this district. We have the lake, we have Jack London Square, we have Lakeshore. It's just so much that it's so vibrant, and we all make it special. And Chinatown has always been very special to me because growing up, my mother told me that my grandfather built a lot of the restaurants here in Chinatown. And when she was a little girl growing up, he would, the owners would invite him each week. At the end of the week, they not only paid him, but they would feed him and his family. So they would open the curtain, and all of, my mother and her brothers and sisters, and my older brothers and sisters, because I wasn't here yet, but and they would treat them to so much of the food that was just the best part of Chinatown. And so I grew up eating bean cake, okay? Bean cake with beef. That was one of my favorite foods. And I just love Chinatown. I love Oakland. I think that I can bring a new voice, a new vision. I've got a business background. I know how to turn this thing around right away. We should not be banking on parking fees to sustain Oakland. It's unsustainable. We need to get some good businesses in and start, revitalizing the businesses here. And I will do all I can to support this community. Thank you so much.
So we want to thank all the candidates for sharing your actions that you'll be taking in important issues facing Chinatown. We wish you the best on your campaigns and as you run for District 2. For the members of the audience, we hope that coming here and getting to see everyone speak has made a difference and will inform your vote. So remember to vote for the District 2 candidate of your choice. All of the candidates have more materials outside, so when you go outside, make sure to pick up materials so you can think more about the candidate that you want to support. On behalf of our hosts and sponsors, thanks to all the candidates, our moderators, our translators, very good, yeah. OACC, our volunteers who made this event possible, and especially to all of you for showing up and showing the candidates how important they are to Chinatown, right? So thank you for your participation and participating, and go out and vote and participate in the democratic process. The ballots will be mailed out next week. So ballots will be mailed out next week. You can vote in person or by mail and put your ballot in the official county ballot drop box. You can cast your ballot at any time from now on until April 15th. Please make sure to take your headphones and return them if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much. Good night.